abrupt intro ending. Welcome in. It is the John Cast Podcast. Thanks for listening to this podcast, brought to you as always by my good friends at Ian's Pizza. Ian's Pizza has 3 locations in Madison. They've got 3 locations in Milwaukee. They're also in Seattle. They're in Denver. What is Ian's Pizza? Well, it's the best specialty type of pizza ever. If you've never tried the macaroni and cheese pizza at Ian's Pizza, that's like a must. That's a go-to. That's something you need to try right away if you've never been to Ian's Pizza. And come on, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably, I hope you've probably been to an Ian's Pizza. Also, check out johncastpodcast.com. Sign up for the newsletter. You're going to find out about all the promotions I'm running with Ian's Pizza when we get that next one finalized. I'm not going to spam you. Just sign up. I'm going to give you information to just cool stuff you can win, basically. johncastpodcast.com. That's JONCAST podcast.com. Rate and review this podcast on Apple and on Spotify. Every rate and review definitely helps. Well, today's guest is one of the newest Wisconsin Badger volleyball players, new transfer coming in that will be playing this fall at the UW Fieldhouse. I'd like to welcome Carter Booth to the John Cast Podcast. What's going on, Carter?
Hi, not a lot. How about you?
Well, I'm just going to say straight up, if you're watching on Spotify, I don't know how this is recording because I see myself in slow motion. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, well, at least, that's the most important thing, I think, for a podcast, right? As long as
probably
as everyone can hear you. So how was your holiday?
It was pretty good. I stayed at home with family. It's a pretty chilled holiday.
Yeah. Did you get everything you wanted for Christmas?
I did.
What'd you get? What'd you get?
Well, I got my number one wish is to be a Badger. And then, I got a purse and some makeup and stuff, but the Badger was the first one on there, so
yeah,
that was pretty good.
I remember seeing that on Christmas Day, right? The news that you've transferred. So what was it about Wisconsin that made you want to be a Badger?
Their volleyball program has been amazing for years. I mean, when I was 13 and I was being recruited, their volleyball program was amazing. So they have a long history of success. And then, the thing that really made them stand out to me is, the fire that they had when we played against them, that passion, how they leave it all out on the court. And I just knew I wanted to be a part of that. I want to win a national championship, and they're doing that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, your old team, you got us that first time on Sunday night volleyball in Minneapolis. And that was honestly because that was the start of what Wisconsin's winning streak after that up until in the NCAA tournament. So I think in some way that loss perhaps ignited a little bit of that championship competitive spirit that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think they definitely did not take well to that loss, and they responded accordingly, and props to them because they went on to have an amazing record and an amazing season.
Yeah. So, I think Minnesota had a great season as well. I know you're not a Gopher anymore, but when I filled out my bracket, I had Minnesota versus Wisconsin. Like that was my matchup. I thought you guys were gonna go pretty deep in the tourney.
Yeah, we did too. We went out there, we had big goals. We were trying to make it to the finals, like everyone else. We fell short of those goals, but we worked hard, and we did our very best to be there. So
now you're going to be playing in Madison at the UW Fieldhouse. We're ecstatic to have you, Badger Volleyball, and I'll speak for the Volleyball Nation here at Wisconsin. We're really excited to have you. And before this interview, I was doing a little bit of research. So I was watching some YouTube videos on you, and there was a news story. I think you were in high school at the time, and they were talking about your father and talking about your mother. And at one point, you talked about your mom's cheering in the stands. And what that is like. So what is that going to be like for perhaps Badger fans sitting next to your mom next season when she comes and attends a game?
Bring earplugs. She's going to be fired up. She's going to be so loud. Yeah, she's not holding back. So be prepared.
What does she say?
Along the lines of the normal cheering, like, let's go guys, come on, all this stuff. When I was in high school, she used to sit close enough to the court and try to yell at me to jump serve and do all these things. She won't be doing that now because I've told her about that, but she the normal cheers you will be hearing.
Okay. I was going to say, so I do the radio broadcasts for Wisconsin volleyball. I mean, should we mic her up at some point? I mean, are we going to get some good audio?
You're going to hear a lot of cussing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was actually a problem that the news crew ran into, was that they actually couldn't use 60% of it because it was so full of expletives. But I mean, you could try if you want.
We'd have to get the beep, the bleep button,
Mm-hmm.
bleep button ready for sure. Okay. So let me ask you about the process of transferring. What is that process like for athletes? Is it a pretty simple one, or can you take me kind of a little bit behind the scenes and walk our listeners through what that's like for a student athlete?
Yeah. So, before you decide to transfer, there is sort of a list of steps that they want you to go through to make sure that you're actually sure that you want this to happen. And so, that was a big part of it, having those long conversations with my family, having a conversation with my coach, talking it through multiple times, with multiple different people to make sure that I actually wanted this, because, once I entered, it's not a process that is reversible. A lot of things start going into action once you put your name in the portal. But basically, it's once you decide you want to enter the portal and you're sure, I emailed my compliance officer. He sent me a list of steps to do. And I want to say within 30 minutes of me emailing, my name was in the portal.
Wow.
So, in terms of the like actual ease of entering, it's pretty easy. The difficult part is, the emotional part and the choice. Because, it is a big choice to literally move different states and, leave everyone that you've been with for a year. So I would say the actual process is not as difficult as it is to make the choice.
I bet. Yeah. The actual process seemed pretty simple, that within 30 minutes, your name's out there. And there's, like you said, there's no coming back from that. Once you enter. So was it kind of an emotional process for you to decide to do that then?
I think it was a bit of an overwhelming process just because of how fast it happened. I mentioned this in another article, but coming out of this past volleyball season, I was not planning on transferring. So, I came home, and I came home and I was with my family for 2 days, and then my dad finally came home. My dad is the general manager of the Nuggets, so I don't really get to see him very often. But I value his opinion so much. So I hadn't really had a chance to sit down and talk to him about, the changes that would be happening with, the coaching change, and process everything that happened throughout the season. So I came home, still fully planning on returning to Minnesota in the spring. And after sitting down with him and my mom and speaking for like 6 hours, we sat down and we talked for the entire day. At the end of that conversation, I realized that, I had to explore my options. So we had that conversation that night. I emailed compliance. The next day, my coach came out to Denver, and we talked. And the next morning after that, my name was in the portal. So that's 3 days that I went from, I'm moving back to Minnesota in the spring. I'm gonna be able to see my friends again. I still had stuff there, to I'm moving to a different school. So that part of it, just how fast it happened.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a decision that wasn't well thought through, but 3 days is a short amount of time for so much to change. So, it was still a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I bet 3 days is not a lot of time whatsoever when you go in, like you said, it's not as if you're like, I think I might want to transfer, I'm going to go home. I'm going to think about this. No, it went from I'm expecting to continue on with the volleyball path that I've chosen. And now, 3 days later, things are totally different. You're right. That is very sudden. So let me ask you this. How long did it take from the time you like you said, it took like the 30 minutes from the email to actually putting your name. Once that name went in, how long before you got that first, notification? I don't know how it works, but you got that notification that someone wants to talk to you about it.
Within 3 minutes, I had 15 emails from 15 different schools. Like my phone was blowing up with texts. A bunch of people were trying to call me. So I was pretty inundated immediately. However, my first call that I made was to Kelly Sheffield. Because I did have his contact from 8 years ago when I was being recruited, and I knew that Wisconsin was my first choice. So yeah, that was my first call.
Wow.
And I proceeded with other schools after that. But
so note to any future student athletes who enter the transfer portal: when you finally hit submit, make sure you've got like some time in front of you, right? Like you're not busy with anything else, because within minutes you're going to start, the phone's going to start blowing up.
Yeah, it's pretty immediate, and be prepared for, the transfer portal is advertised as, a private choice. Only coaches are able to see the portal. However, me and my mom made a bet. We're like, how long do you think until this is on Volley Talk and Twitter and Instagram? And I was like 2 hours max, and I was right.
2 hours? Is that what it took?
Yeah. So a piece of advice I'd give to student athletes is, get ahead of it. Talk to your team and your coaches and your training staff first, because you don't want them to hear it from someone else. You want them to hear it from you. So don't put off telling people, because it will get out.
No, I think that's really good advice. So, before you even thought about going into the portal, do players talk about the transfer portal?
Like with each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when Hugh made the decision to leave, people, we went to each other and we were like, are you going to stay? Are you going to stay? And, everybody was at the time saying, yeah, I'm going to stay, because this isn't a decision that you make in the moment. And, there were some people who have decided to leave in the past who we knew were going to leave because we talked to each other about that. But, you can't really tell your team until you know. So unfortunately, when I was asked if I was going to stay a couple weeks ago, I did say yes, because I didn't know that I was going to leave. And I feel like the impact was that some people might have been blindsided by this decision, which was never my intention at all. But yeah, I mean, you can only know as much as the person who's making that decision knows.
Yeah. I'll get off the transfer portal here in a second, but I think fans have their opinion about the transfer portal. For me, I love the freedom that it allows student athletes. I love that some of that power for their own decisions, their own well-being, their own life. I mean, like when it comes down, these are life decisions for you. And I love that the NCAA finally said, okay, we're going to give you a little bit more control over what you want to do with your life. And so I like that. What is the overall players' opinion about the transfer portal? Do they kind of feel the same way about it? Like, this is a good thing, although some fans may not like it because some of their favorite players will leave their favorite teams. For me, I like the power it gives the players.
Yeah. I think people who play in the sport and are in it on a daily basis like the transfer portal, because, it does give student athletes some of that power back. I think the common misconception about the transfer portal is it's so easy that athletes just sort of throw it around and they're like, I'm going to transfer today, like that. And I want to clarify that it's not like that whatsoever. Just because it is easier for us to advocate for ourselves and choose something different when we don't feel we are in a place that can facilitate growth. It doesn't mean that it's a decision that's made lightly. This is you uprooting your life because you're prioritizing yourself, which is, an incredibly difficult decision, and a decision that people don't have to make until they're in their late 30s, let alone 19. So, it's very difficult, but I think the general consensus amongst student athletes is that, it gives us that power back so that we don't feel trapped.
All right. So I see the jerseys in the background. If anyone's watching on Spotify, I don't know, by the way, if I'm going to post this video, because I'm still in slow motion on this podcast. I don't know what I look like to you, Carter. Do I look like slow motion still?
Yeah, it's going in and out.
Okay. Well, at least once again, as long as the audio is there, I think that's the most important part. But if I do post this video and you do see it on Spotify, you will notice the jerseys in the background. That's because, your father played in the NBA. So I think probably the question you might get a lot is, why don't you play basketball?
He tried when I was 10 or when I was 9. I played basketball for like a short little season and I absolutely loathed it. I specifically remember sitting down in the middle of the court during a play and like refusing to stand up. Like I would not do it. I mean, I've always been a hard-headed person. I've always been stubborn. And I've always wanted to do my own thing. So the idea of, being in someone else's shadow, even at 9 years old, was not for me. I wanted to, I wanted to make my own path. Yeah. So basically it came down to it, and he is like, look, you don't have to play basketball, but you're going to play a sport. So, so my elementary school gym teacher had, like a little volleyball team, and it was not serious. Like there were 2 boys on my team. But we had a little volleyball team, and I went over there and started playing, and then I moved to Minnesota and started playing club seriously, and it was history from there.
Wow. Okay. So so that was after the basketball, like around 9-10 years old is when you started. Yeah. And so what was it about volleyball that you're like, didn't want to make you sit down in the middle of the court during a game?
Well, first of all, this is so stupid, and I'm actually I was forgetting this until just now, but me, my brother, and my cousins made up this game called Don't Touch the Ground with like a balloon, and it was basically volleyball, now that I think back to it. Yeah. And we played that like my entire childhood. So, the fact that volleyball resembled that childhood game that we created was appealing to me. And then, I started playing, and I just fell in love with it. I don't know. I just fell in love.
Wow. Don't Touch the Ground. Is that the name of the game?
Yeah.
That sounds so much fun. Have you seen, because there are like, they have a name for it. Have you seen the videos of like the balloon championships where people do, like they're in a living room, like a setup living room, and there's a balloon and they're chasing it and they're wearing helmets, but it's like a competitive thing. Have you seen this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never seen that.
Oh, it just reminds me so much of Don't Touch the Ground, because that sounds like a game that, like you said, like once you start playing as a kid, I would play that for like an hour today if I could.
Yeah.
Because it's so much fun.
Yeah, no, it would get pretty heated. It would get pretty heated for sure.
Yeah. So when did you know then that you were good? By the way, I'm going to look for that game so I can share this and show it to you here on this podcast. But when did you know that you were good then at volleyball?
I would say, I think 15s was when I was like, okay, I'm kind of good. Because the previous years I'd been on the 1s, and then 14s I made the 2s, and that year sort of spurred me to be like, I'm not just gonna, because before it had been, well, she's tall and she's young, so she's a shoo-in for the 1s. 14s, it was like, I didn't have the skill. So that year I committed myself to developing my skill and getting better in that department. And 15s, I made the 1s again, and I was like, I got this. Like I earned this. And and, you know, I'm going to keep going. So, yep.
So okay, and then was it shortly after that that the college coaches started to contact you, or when did that happen? Was that before that?
It was before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
13s actually.
Right.
Was when I first started getting contacted by college coaches. And I played up a year. So in 13s, I was 12. So 13s, I started getting contacted by college coaches, and I was living in Minnesota at the time. So I was able to go, and this was before the rule change. So they were able to contact me, and I was able to go and visit and things like that. And so I was being actively recruited throughout my 13s year and most of my 14s club season. And then at the end of 14s, I committed.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a pretty short timeline.
Right. Okay. Here, I'm gonna share a video with you. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see this. All right, can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is basically, see how they set up like a couch? There's a car apparently in this living room.
Yeah.
And there's two people. Is this kind of like Don't Touch the Ground, except without the car?
It's exactly like Don't Touch the Ground. It's exactly like it.
So I came across these videos. Actually, I think it was last night. I've seen it before, but last night I'm watching it, and these videos are like so insane. But there's a lot of volleyball skill in not letting a balloon touch the ground. Like,
yeah.
do you think in some strange way it has made you? I mean, obviously you're not doing any like fundamental blocking moves, but I mean, it's the whole concept of just chasing down the ball and popping it back up. Do you think it's made you maybe help make you that better kind of defensive player in a way?
You know, I mean, even now when we had little kids camps, we would train them with volleyballs. I mean, not volleyballs. We would train them with balloons because, you know, they're a little bit slower and it's easier to get your bearings of, you know, hand-eye coordination. So I think that definitely did help me down that path of, you know, finding my legs a little bit and having that coordination to be able to see a ball and go hit it. Because like I was like Bambi on ice. I did not have, my center of gravity was changing so often because I was growing so fast that I had zero hand-eye coordination. So I think Don't Touch the Ground definitely did sort of help me
Yeah.
that out a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. So what do you think helped? Okay, so the Don't Touch the Ground. Did you, let me ask you this, because it seems like I'll bring up like Dana Redke, for example. And I'm not sure how much you kind of looked up to her being a taller middle. I'll ask you about that in a second, but I know she took like dance lessons as a young kid. Was that ever the case for you too?
I did ballet, tap, and jazz, and I did yoga with my dad regularly.
Oh, fun.
You know, try and help out with my balance. So yeah, I definitely did take advantage of some of those different methods.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Cause it kind of helps you just become more athletic. It's kind of interesting how often you hear about, I think I could be mistaken, but I think Anna Smrek also took dance lessons.
She did.
She did. Yeah. And as sometimes as players like yourself and Anna and Dana grow, it kind of helps you become a little bit more agile, right?
Yeah, I definitely did. The main thing for me was, you know, the balance piece because, you know, I didn't really have a center of gravity. And, you know, when you're jumping off of one foot and you're trying to fly at 60 miles an hour to the left and not run into people, you sort of need to be able to balance. So yeah, it definitely did help me in my game.
So I did mention Dana Redke, the 5-time first-team All-American, helped Wisconsin to its first ever national championship in 2021. So how much did you look up to a player like Dana?
You know, even though I have been a Gopher for the past 7 years, Dana Redke is a legend. She just, you know, broke barriers on what a middle is and what a middle can do. She was incredibly offensive. You know, she wasn't just up there to block. They trusted her. They got the ball to her and she was able to kill it, you know. So I definitely looked up to her. And, you know, a lot of aspects of my game are because I wanted to be a versatile player like Dana. You know, I didn't want to be put in a box of someone who can only block.
And have you ever been the second tallest player on a team before? Because that's what you're walking into at Wisconsin.
I know. I've never been the second tallest person anywhere in except in my house, because my little brother is 6'10".
Okay.
So, but yeah, I've never been the second tallest anywhere, but yeah, we'll see. It'll definitely be an experience.
How much have you been able to talk to like someone like Anna or any of the Badger players? How often have you been able to meet with some of your teammates since the news?
I haven't spoken to a ton of people. I mean, all of them commented on my post.
Yeah.
And a few of them DM'd me. I've mostly just been talking to Devin, because I've known her for a couple of years now, because we played USA together and we were in contact already. So, I've been talking to her and MJ, because I'll be moving in with them. So yeah, so just talking about those things, but yeah, it's mostly been limited to 2 people.
Okay. Okay.
Excited to get on.
What's that?
But I'm excited to get on campus and meet everyone.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So let me ask you, outside of volleyball, one question, and I've got some random questions for you, Carter. Okay.
Okay.
So just kind of be prepared to go all over the place here. But before random question time, what are you most passionate about outside of volleyball?
Outside of volleyball, I would say I really like to read. I read a lot. I finish books. Like I sort of binge read books the way you would binge watch a Netflix series. Like I'll finish a book in 24 hours, easy. Like Colleen Hoover, obsessed with her.
Who's that? I'm sorry, who's that?
Colleen Hoover, she's an author.
Okay. What did she write?
She wrote, my favorite one is It Ends With Us. She wrote Without Merit. Yeah. Okay,
I'm looking her up right now. Colleen Hoover. Okay. All right. I'll maybe check out some of that. That's a great, I know, like, this sounds very simplistic. That's a great skill to have, reading. But
yeah.
But seriously, like it's tough sometimes to sit down and find the time to read a book. So I think that's pretty cool that you're able to read that. How many books do you get done in a year? Have you ever kept track?
I think in like 8th grade we had to do a book log, and I finished like something like 57 books in the year or something. Yeah. In the school year, but yeah, I don't really keep track. I'm assuming it's high though, because my room is overrun by books that I've read. So yeah,
well, that's got to be good for to be so passionate about reading, because like obviously as you know, you're a college student athlete, and as a student you're going to have to do a lot of reading. So it's pretty cool that you're able to do that. I don't know. I find like just listening to audiobooks is way easier for me than sitting down and reading. Yeah. I don't know. It's just the concentration. I don't know what it is, but
yeah. No, the part about reading is I sort of like having a physical book in front of me, I sort of get more immersed in the story. You know, I can read off of digital, but I prefer the real thing.
That's pretty interesting, because I think I do too. When I do read, I prefer having an actual book than looking at like an iPad screen or something. Not that you can't get it done the other way, but I think that's something that, because you always wonder like, oh man, what bookstores just toast now because everything's just going to be online. But I think there is still a segment of the population that likes to physically turn the page, you know? Yeah. And I think that's important. So, you ready for random questions, Carter?
I am.
Okay. So you mentioned a couple social media apps before. What is your favorite social media app?
TikTok.
What's your favorite app? TikTok.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says.
Uh-huh. I think my screen time for this week averaged 8 hours a day.
Oh, like, no. Okay. Wow. I can't believe you admitted that.
It's really bad. No, but it's not like I'm just sitting around all day scrolling on TikTok. It's like it's 11 p.m. and I'm like, oh, I'm going to look at TikTok for a little bit. And then before I know it, it's 3 a.m. and I haven't slept yet. So I need to delete it. I actually delete TikTok going into the season, because I literally will not sleep if I have it.
That's some good discipline, by the way.
I want to delete it. I need to do it. I deleted it at the beginning of last season and did not stick with it for very long. So I definitely follow it through this time.
Yeah, that's tough to do. I've tried deleting apps before and it worked for a while, but then I think I needed to like message someone or something. And then it's just been on my phone ever since. But you know, it's funny what you said about like staying up late watching the TikTok. I haven't gotten TikTok yet. Like I've avoided TikTok as best as I could. But basically on Instagram, all the TikTok videos get to Instagram anyway. And so I literally just saw one the other day of someone watching the phone, like looking at the time before bed, looking at the phone. It's like 10 o'clock. And then they look again and it's like 3 a.m. So that's hilarious because that's like an actual real life thing that happens. All right. So TikTok #1, I'm guessing Instagram #2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instagram #2, probably Twitter #3, because I just got Twitter this year and I don't really know how to use it still.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Twitter #3.
But if you could, because you just mentioned deleting, like let's say I said to you, quit social media and I give you $10,000 a year. Are you doing that? Or is that not enough?
Oh, you know,
20.
I mean,
I'll give you 20.
Does Snapchat count as social media?
Yes, all social media. You basically just have a phone to talk and FaceTime and text.
I would turn it down because I'd lose my 365-day streak with my mom because we Snapchat. So she loves that streak. I don't keep streaks with anyone but her, and my best friend. So
okay, hold on. Let's adjust because that I like that you and your mom have that streak. It's at 365.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to keep that thing going for thousands of days as long as you can get that. So okay, I'll let you keep Snapchat.
Yeah. Okay. If I keep Snapchat, I'll give the rest of it up. Okay.
All right. Good. Favorite NBA team?
Nuggets.
Okay. So that was a test. I was going to see what you would say.
Yeah.
Did you have what was your relationship like just watching basketball? Did you watch basketball a lot as a kid as your father was a player in the league for I think 10 years?
Yeah. Well, I was under 4 years old by the time he retired. But I mean, yeah, I lived at basketball games. You know, everyone on the team knew me. I'd go in the locker room like I was like the honorary team mascot. So yeah, I mean, I've grown up watching basketball games. I mean, even after when my dad entered, the front office side of basketball, I've gone to hundreds of basketball games in my life. It's just the norm for us.
How do you think the Nuggets are going to do this year? I got it. They're second in the Western Conference. Actually tied for first, basically, with the Pelicans.
Yeah. I mean, you've got Jokic, you've got AG, you've got Murray. I feel like we have a really good shot. I feel like we're going to do good.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, next random question for Carter. Best TV streaming service?
Gosh, a week ago my answer would be Netflix, but I'm running out of things to watch on there, so I've got to say Hulu for the Love Island.
Hulu. Love Island. Let me write that down. Love Island. Is that like a reality show?
It is.
Never mind. I'm not going to watch it.
Oh no! Reality is my guilty pleasure. I'm not going to lie. It is.
So I'm guessing they're all people on an island and they date each other.
Yeah, basically. Okay. Basically that's the premise.
I thought you were a big Game of Thrones fan. I saw on one YouTube video.
I am. I watched all of Game of Thrones through 3 different times. And what was the spinoff? Oh yeah, House of Dragon. I loved House of Dragon. But you can only rewatch a show so many times. Got to branch out before I get sick of it, and then I can circle back and watch it again this year.
I do another podcast. It's video games, and it's also like talking about TV shows or whatever. And so me and my other co-host, we watched House of the Dragon, and I gave it 8.5 out of 10, which is a very high grade. Like 10 to me this is elite. This is an all-time type of series, and I don't know if season 1 of House of the Dragon was that, but I gave it an 8.5. The thing that bothered me the most about it, Carter, and I'll ask you, is the way they changed characters.
Mhm.
And I know that was the plan going in, but you have like one actress playing, I already forget her name, Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm watching and there's this new person that they're calling Rhaenyra. And it was super confusing as a viewer. I was like,
Yeah.
why is that? That's not the same person, is it? Is she in makeup? Like what's happening? And that really bothered me about House of the Dragon.
Okay, so I think for that aspect, I was following the series before it came out because, you know, I'd seen the teaser trailers and stuff. And in the articles before it was coming out, they did talk about how they were going to have like a time jump and use different actors.
Okay.
However, I do agree that, you know, it could have been a bit confusing because we're jumping one of them, the time jump was like 3 years. And I mean, Eamon looked like he was 37 years old, and some of the kids were still looking like kids. So I was like, you know, I think they definitely could have executed it better. But, you know, in theory, I think it was a good idea.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get it because as I looked back and reflected on it, I get it. Like, just kind of the way, because Rhaenyra was supposed to be like probably what, in her 40s, something like that, I would
Yeah.
guess. And then all of a sudden we see her and she looks younger, but I don't know. And then they kept other characters the same and they just put makeup on them. So I was
Yeah.
like, what is that going?
Yeah.
All right, couple final questions for you. What would you rather have? A big block or an uncontested kill right at the net? No blockers are up and you get to just unload.
Big block every day.
Every day.
Every
Why?
it just feels amazing. Housing someone is like the best feeling in the world. It's so difficult to like, you know, get your block set up and like get there on time because the game is just getting faster and faster. So when you do and it's like a straight down house, like uncontested, no question, it's so awesome. And the celebration is so awesome.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of opportunities at Wisconsin for that. I mean, this is one of the best blocking teams, I think, in school history.
Yeah.
Was this past season. And you're right. I get it. Like, I love watching, and that doesn't happen very often, by the way, like an uncontested kill at the net, maybe on an overpass or something like that. But there's something about the defense, specifically in the postseason this year in Madison, and you get a big block. I think Caroline Crawford had 3 blocks in the 5th set against Penn State, and every one of them, it's just, not only is it, you know, as a player, like you said, I bet you it's the best feeling, but man, is that like momentum type of play for your team?
Yeah, I mean, it really fires you up like no other. Yeah. I love it.
All right, final thing for you here. I'm going to share my screen again, and we are going to talk about something that you put out on Twitter.
Oh gosh,
that's okay. Here, hold on. Let me click the right buttons. All right, so if you're watching on Spotify, if I do decide to post this video, I think I'm better now. I'm not as slow. All right, so this is you announcing basically that you're going to Wisconsin. You're wearing the Wisconsin sweatshirt. Hashtag new profile pic at Carter 5200. Carter 5200, however you want to say that. And you got the motion W, right? You got that, or not the motion W, but you got the W up with your fingers, with your thumbs and your index fingers. And were people giving you crap on the W on this picture because it's a little
I know. I was getting a little crap. Let me just say, you know, I did my best. My fingers are a little messed up from blocking. They're a little bit crooked. And, you know, I wasn't fully tensed in that picture. So, you know, a couple different factors led to my W looking like calligraphy. I will do better next time, but you know, the base, my fingers are a little bit, you know, not as straight as they should be because of blocking and stuff like that.
Right.
So, bear with me.
Okay, so it's not really that you didn't know. It's just kind of like that's just the casualty of being a middle blocker.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's I was going to ask you, like, how vulnerable are your fingers as a middle blocker? Because part of the reason I ask is because Caroline Crawford, you know, busted up her pinky this season and had to have a plate and like 9 screws put in.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see during the Wisconsin match at Wisconsin, like my entire hand was taped up because, you know, in club volleyball and high school volleyball, you're trying to avoid hands. In college volleyball, it's like, no, hit the hands, like destroy their fingers, like send it off the block. So the difference is people are actually trying to use your fingers as like a tactical option. So I mean, my thumbs have gotten busted up like to the point where I've been on the court like not able to feel my right hand. Like
Wow.
but you know, you power through. But I mean, yeah, your fingers are pretty vulnerable because people are actually trying to hit them.
Wow. There's got to be something for middle blockers that you can develop some sort of like glove thing that doesn't interrupt like your use of your hands either.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing with you know, the contraption that football players are wearing now that like, you know, increases blood flow to the brain. Like it helps, but you have to get used to playing with it. And I just haven't been willing to get used to playing with tape all over my fingers. So maybe I'll start that journey this spring. But so far, I'm a free hands person.
Okay, very cool. Well, Carter, it was great to meet you. We're really excited as volleyball fans here in the state of Wisconsin to have you on next year's squad, and we're looking for big things. And thank you so much for taking some time to join the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right, there you go. That is Carter Booth, the newest Wisconsin Badger middle. Made that announcement transferring from Minnesota to Wisconsin on, I think it was on Christmas Day. So thanks to Carter for joining the podcast. Thanks to Ian's Pizza for sponsoring this podcast. Check out Ian's Pizza and their 3 locations in Madison and their 3 locations in Milwaukee. They're also available in Seattle and Denver. Sign up for the newsletter, JONCAST podcast.com. That's JohnCastPodcast.com. Rate and review this podcast, please. It really does help on Apple or Spotify, and it takes like seconds. You just give how many stars you want to give. So thank you once again for listening to this edition of the JohnCast podcast. I'll talk to you next time. See ya. Thanks.